Welcome to part 4 of this mini-series about Flamingo Land history. This time we're talking about the noughties, so let's get into it. Right, so 2000 started off with a bang. They got a rather impressive coaster, but rather than me tell you about it, I'm going to hand over to Joe.
And we'll start off with Magnum Force, which was my first major inverting roller coaster. Now up to this point, I'd only really ridden the Ultimate at Lightwater Valley and of course the Ladybird, which was one of my small main kind of coasters. Originally I started out in Blackpool, but hey, that's Chris's grounds. And Magnum Force was a real step up from kind of where I'd actually been previously. Now, I basically got on it, I thought I knew what I could expect from it, I thought I knew what was coming. Yeah, I really didn't, to be fair. And I stepped on, got in the seats, strapped myself in because of course you had those big clunky restraints that came over, and I sent the train. Now, it went up and up and up, and I realised very quickly, you know what, this is a lot higher than it looks off-ride, but hey, it was too late at that point. Went down the first drop, and of course then hit the first couple of loops. Well, I've never experienced anything so intense up till that point in my life. And the forces I felt going through those loops were quite something. Now, that was the point I realised what a roller coaster could genuinely actually do and just how much of an impact it could have on those that were riding it. And in all fairness, I was just absolutely blown away by it. I loved it. It was absolutely amazing. And I literally got off at the end of it with this literally shaking with adrenaline, like what's just actually happened. And I ran around and we got straight back on and we went again. Now, we went on a very quiet day. It was actually for one of my friend's birthdays at the time. And I think we must have lapped this about a good 10 or 15 times at that point. But yeah, Magnum Force, my first major inverting roller coaster. Of course known as dry looping as well. It's done travel around quite a fair bit, and it's now at Indiana Beach over in the States. American Triple Loop, I think it's called, or something like that. So yeah, that was my first major inverting roller coaster and a real step forward for me at Flamingo Land.
Right, thanks for that, Joe. Doesn't seem like this was the most reliable ride out there, though. I found this footage of it struggling to get up the lift hill. One thing I find kind of interesting, from what I can see here, there was a competition to name the ride, and that as part of winning the name, or being the name that won I should say, you would get free entry to the park. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that there was sponsorship of this because, you know, Magnum, walls and all that kind of thing, so I don't know if that was just coincidental and they saw the name and went, oh, we can team up with walls, or if they didn't actually pick a name from the competition, but yeah, apparently that's how it got its name. Right, so we also got Formula Car, which looks like little kind of go-kart-y things. I think this is the Jeeps. I've seen pictures of those. I think it's the same thing. Seems to be the precursor to what we have today with Flamingo One. Right, I found reference here in a leaflet to Little Monsters being new for 2000. But I'm a bit confused by that because the Mischief Mansion didn't come till next year. So I don't know if it was planned for 2000 and slipped, or if the characters came in 2000 and the ride came in 2001. Seems a little bit odd. Right, so 2001 we get this dark ride that I mentioned. Now, it's obviously currently known as Mischief Mansion, but it was known as the Den of Mischief when it opened. It's an interesting little ride. It's, do you know, I think it's quite well themed for a sort of kids caricature style ghost train, if you will. It's got that kind of annoying tune that gets stuck in your head, as is the case with many dark rides out there. I just think it's too slow. Like, I get you don't want to go flying through all the rooms, but it is really slow. And the times I've been there, it's only got, what, 3 or 4 kind of cars on at a time? So given how slow it is, and they're kind of batched as well, it's not like there's one leaving like every minute. Like, they come in like 4 at a time, and then they go out, and then you're waiting ages for them to catch back up again. It just seems really odd. But anyway, 2001 is when that happened. Right, so part of this area as well, they also got the Exploratorium. Now, I can see pictures of the outside. I cannot see anything about the inside. There's some references that this was kind of like scientific tests, so I'm assuming it's kind of some weird experiment things that you can look at and I don't know. I'd love to know. If you remember this, please tell me what it was, because yeah, I can, as I say, I can see the exterior, but not the interior. Right, you might remember in the last episode we talked about Professor Bubble's Seaside Adventures, the ride. Well, he came back in 2001 with a show, and well, here's a little clip of him with a rather catchy tune about how science can do anything.
You can barely even comprehend, and did I mention all my inventions make your hair stand on end?
Always fantastic, always bombastic. Never believe your own eyes. Super devices.
All of the prices I can make any size.
I'd like 1,000-inch telly.
Right, and I also went looking through newspaper articles, and the one thing I could find in 2001 is that one of the gardeners fell from the monorail and needed knee surgery. Right, moving on to 2002, we got a brand new area. Now, that area is still there to this day. Came with a couple of attractions and a restaurant. Now, one of the attractions was the small frog hopper ride, which, well, as I said, it's still there to this day. The other thing was Cliffhanger. Now, this was an interesting one because, listen, it's an S&S combo tower. Probably one of the best ones I've been on in the UK. Possibly one of the only ones, because the S&S tower in Blackpool is a shot tower. This is a combo, so it shoots you up and it also lifts you up and drops you back down again. Lovely if Launchpad does that, but they've not said they're gonna. Now, I say that this is a good ride. When I was on it last year, it seemed to not be running in combo mode. It was just doing the shot tower. So I don't know if that is just one of its possible cycles, you know, if it's busy, maybe they cut it down, or if it has lost its combo feature. I'm there in 2 weeks' time for opening day, so I guess I'll find out. Right, moving on to 2003. So that shot tower, Cliffhanger, if you've seen the previous episodes, you know that they got in trouble for the bullet, and it was too tall, and then the solution was paint it grey. Well, they got in trouble for the Cliffhanger too, because apparently it was an eyesore. So yeah, the solution there was also to paint it grey. And you can see here the before and after. Previously it was quite, you know, nicely themed all the way up the tower. And now it's kind of themed at the bottom and then just grey at the top. So yeah, that's a little bit of a letdown because it certainly looked better before. And then the other thing that we got in 2003 was their pirate ship, the current pirate ship. Now, there was previously a boat there, but the one that we've got today called Voodoo, as I say, still on site to this day. I don't know if I've ever done it, because when I'm there, it's often closed. I get the feeling that if it's not busy, they don't run that attraction. Again, I'm there in a couple of weeks, so maybe I'll get on it. Right, moving on to 2004, and we got another fairly substantial attraction in the park that, well, it's still there to this day, but it's getting some TLC. But rather than me tell you about it, I'm going to hand this one over to Joe.
Now, I'm just going to take a little moment to talk a little bit about a certain ride that is receiving a complete overhaul at the moment. And as a lot of people know, Lost River opened at Flamingo Land quite a long time ago. Now, let's start by answering a few questions. Yes, the drop has been lowered by half. Yes, there will be new elements to the ride, including SimWorks hardware in the ride itself. So yes, you will have a simulation experience inside one of those show buildings. Yes, there will be other indoor sections to that ride as well. And yes, it will be a very different ride experience to what you know previously. As to when it will open, we don't yet know, but this is Flamingo Land's latest step forward in terms of investment into the park that not only rejuvenates an existing attraction that was loved by a lot of people, but also brings a new lease of life to the ride for future generations to come in and enjoy. So, of course, I'll be there for the opening of that, but that's just a little insight into Lost River in case Chris decides to stick this in the video. Don't know if he will, but there you go.
We also got one small attraction in 2004 called Swoosh Air. Now, it is basically a little roundabout with plane themed cars that you can raise and lower at your desire. So I always refer to these as Dumbo rides. It's that kind of Dumbo style ride. That came in 2004. And then the last thing I've got from 2004 was a pretty severe accident on Magnum Force, in fact. Whilst the ride was operating, I think a member of staff attempted to cross the track. In any case, the member of staff was struck by the train and sent 20 feet in the air. Now, I can't see what his injuries were, but I can't imagine that they were not severe. Now, if you are enjoying this video, please make sure you hit that like button and do consider subscribing for the rest of the episodes. Let's keep going, shall we? Right, so 2005 saw a number of attractions added, and the first one was Navigator, which is their roller disco. Now, I've been pretty critical of roller discos in videos of late. There are not too many of them that I'm a massive fan of. I think the one in Flamingo Land's okay. Listen, they're not thrilling rides by any stretch of the imagination, but yeah, 2005 is when that was added. And then the second one that we got was Vortex. Now this is that little, basically rocking tugboat. What I find strange about this one, and I think it was Mike from Love to Explore that pointed this one out, I had never noticed this, there's this kind of optical illusion behind the ride. And it looks like the sort of thing that should be moving to give that optical illusion. Now, not too fast, because it would probably make people sick and dizzy, but it doesn't move, and it seems a little bit odd, because, yeah, well, it feels like it should. And then the final thing that we got in 2005 was yet another big coaster. This time it was Velocity, their Vekoma booster bike. Still there to this day. It's had a paint job, started off as a sort of bluey green, and it is now red. It's got quite a punchy launch, and then sort of meanders after that, but still an attraction that I enjoy to this day. The other thing I got from 2005 is an advert, so let's take a look at that.
Go wild at Flamingo Land, Malton, North Yorkshire. Wild animals, wilder rides.
Moving on to 2006, and we got yet another major installation. This park is pretty good at putting in big coasters reasonably frequently. So 2006, it was Kumali. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with kind of the tech side of coasters, this is manufactured by Vekoma and it is known as an SLC, a suspended looping coaster. Now, within the community, these things are notoriously hated. They are not comfortable, they are not great. In fact, we have another one in the UK in Blackpool known as Infusion, and it's a proper headbanger. What's bizarre though is that Kumali is a custom implementation, so all the rest of these SLCs, they're exactly the same layout. You'll see them all over Europe. They are literally the same. Look different in terms of colour, but it's the exact same ride layout. Kumali, on the other hand, is custom, and that makes a massive difference because I can actually ride this thing without being in pain. Although on the flip side, it has probably the world's slowest lift hill. Maybe a contender against Python over in Efteling. Right, then there was a TV series that followed the park around for a little period, and there's a clip here during the construction of the ride, so let's take a look at that, shall we?
This is the site of our newest and most beautiful roller coaster to date. It's our new project for the 2006 season. It's a suspended looping coaster from Vekoma in Holland. It's named after our male lion, who's the head of our pride.
Yeah, they got a second attraction this year as well. Not quite to the same level as Kumali, because it was the tractor ride over in Muddy Duck Farm. Right, moving on to 2007, and there was a number of attractions added. Not all good ones though. So the first one was their Runaway Mine Train, and it's nothing like the one in Towers, you know, choo choo. That's quite a fun little ride. This thing, absolutely not. In fact, when I did a review of the park recently, I wanted to scrap it because if you've seen it, it absolutely flings you around. Like, the clip I've got, people are complete ragdolls going around the corner. It is just not good. Anyway, it was added in 2007. The other thing that came in 2007 was their splash battle. Now, it's a standard sort of max splash battle. You've probably been on it before in a nice warm summer's day because you wouldn't go on it any other day. Because not only do you get wet from various elements around the ride, but you also have spectators who are shooting at you. So I've done it a couple of times and you're guaranteed to get absolutely drenched. Now to go along with that, they also had that splish splosh area that goes beside it, which is kind of great for the younger kids. I've seen plenty of kids just running around in like swim trunks, just getting absolutely soaked in the summer ones. So that was added as well. And then of course for 2007, I have yet another advert for you.
Go wild at Flamingo Land, North Yorkshire. Wild animals, wilder rides.
Moving on to 2008. Start with a little attraction here. We got Heli Toys. Yeah, so Heli Toys, basically, it's over in Muddy Duck Farm and it's a little kids ride with little helicopters that rise up and sort of rotate around. Nothing particularly thrilling. What was meant to be thrilling, and possibly was in its early days, was Flip Flop. Now, Flip Flop is, I don't know if it's technically a gyro swing, but it's conceptually the same as a gyro swing. You know, it's the sort of pendulum ride that you sit on and, you know, happy days and it rotates and stuff. Now, when it was first put in there was a sort of water feature around it. That is always drained now, which kind of looks a little bit odd because it looks like it's not complete. And in addition to that, a number of the seats have been removed. Now, I've jokingly called this flop in the past because it has absolutely no force in it anymore. And I wonder if that is why they removed the seats, because maybe it just didn't have enough oomph to get all those passengers up. I don't know if they did this in collaboration with the manufacturer or if it was a custom butchering of this ride, because if you look on the manufacturer's website, they actually have Flip Flop in its original incarnation on there as an image. So anyway, here's a picture of what it used to look like and what it does now. So yeah, it's now a flop. There was also a little kids ride. It was a little jungle carousel that was added. Nothing special. Now, what's interesting in 2008 is that there was plans for a wooden coaster. Now, that never happened. They don't have one. They never have had one. Interestingly, it was going to be built by Vekoma. Now, that's who made Kumali, but it's not a manufacturer that you typically associate with wooden coasters. In fact, I've looked on the Wikipedia and there were only ever 3 Vekoma wooden coasters. One of them is now being converted to an RMC, and that is Untamed over in Wallaby, Holland. But in any case, they were going to get this, but I can't remember if it was planning permission that was withdrawn, but long story short, we didn't get that wooden coaster at Flamingo Land. So I've got another advert for you. Probably the strangest advert I have ever seen. And apologies, I could only find an extremely low resolution version of this, so it's not particularly great quality, but yeah, very, very strange marketing decision.
Flamingo Land is such a lovely place to take the kiddies.
And scare them half to death with the wickedest white-knuckle rides this side of Hades.
Flamingo Land is a world of fun. Just soak up the atmosphere.
Or just get soaked.
There are the wonders of the natural world.
And of the supernatural, too.
Perfect for your little angels.
Or little devils.
Flamingo Land, it's a different world.
Right, so moving on to 2009, and this was both a big year and a quiet year because there was only one change, but it was quite a big change. And that is that they got Mumbo Jumbo. Now, at the time when Mumbo Jumbo opened, it was the steepest coaster in the world, I think. Certainly in the UK, pretty sure it was in the world. In fact, they've still got the plaque outside for the kind of Guinness Book of Records for the steepest in its first drop, 112 degrees, I think it was. It has been beaten since. It is no longer the steepest. But yeah, here's some footage from its opening day.
And then the presentation to Chief Executive Gordon Gibb, and it's official, Mumbo Jumbo is a world record beater.
I did a video not that long ago comparing European parks to American parks. And one of the things I said was that in America, when the weather gets pretty bad, they tend to shut down rides. Whereas in Europe, we just don't care. Well, that kind of backfired on Flamingo Land in 2009 because there was a thunderstorm that shut down the park and Kumali was stuck at the top of the lift hill. For about 45 minutes in the rain, whilst they tried to get a diesel generator to get it going again. I said it was the slowest lift hill, but that's taking the mick. Right, so there you go. That is the Naughties. There's one episode left next week, which will be 2010 and beyond. If you have enjoyed this one, hit that like button and make sure you subscribe for that final episode. I've been Chris, you've been watching Coaster Dad, and I shall see you in the next one. Adios!